Good evening. Well, on behalf of the President and the faculty and staff and the 128th Corps of Cadets, for those of you that are visiting our campus, welcome. I think you all are in for a real treat tonight after spending some time with our speaker. So to get things underway, I'd like to introduce to you the Missouri Military Academy Director of College Placement, Dr. Ayanna Shivers.
I am going to be very brief. I just want to say first, thank you for coming out on this evening for MMA's Leach Foundation Series. So this is the second for the year. And so it is a privilege to be able to, I'm not going to really introduce him too much because he's going to do a lot of that in his presentation. But a friend, I would like to say, of mine that I've known for about 5 years, met in Georgetown and was just amazed with his work and his love and passion for students. And I've had him in other schools and stuff in South Carolina and was just grateful that he could come spend a week in Mexico. Yesterday, he's been at every single school in Mexico. That's awesome in Cleveland. The mayor actually declared this week a week that we are celebrating the contributions he's made in children's literature and even with adult literature with his 70 children's books that he's illustrated, as well as I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. Phenomenal person, and it is my pleasure to turn this over to Mr. E.B. Willis.
I do a number of these all over the country, actually over the world. And each time I come out to speak, it's because I do so many of them, I don't prepare until, or know what I'm going to say until I get in front of my audience. Makes it fresh for me. Makes it interesting for you, makes it real, because I do about 80 of these a year, and if you do that many of speaking about the same thing, before you know it, you will get tired and bored. And so, I come out as an artist, and an artist, as Antonio Franconi said, that artists are outlaws, that we tell dangerous truths without hurting the soul. And so, first I'm going to start about my day, how my day starts as an artist. I wake up and realize that 1 million people have not woke up. 1 million people will not wake up tomorrow. Wow, that's nice. 1 million people will not wake up tomorrow. And so that sets my focus, to know that I am one of the gifted, one of the blessed, to be able to wake up, look up in the sky, and say, I'm here. And now what I'm going to do with that day. One, I have to realize where's my focus, my perception. Perception shapes your reality. And since I know perception shapes my reality, you think you're looking at me right here because all of you see me and all of you assume that you see the exact same thing. But in actuality, you don't. It's like a laptop, computer. The little eye there, that eye focuses out, checks, brings out the information, sends it back into the computer, and then it's all simulated and all downloaded and processed. And so what you see is what is actually here, or in this case, your third eye. And so we all are looking and thinking about the same, we think we're thinking the same things, but we're actually thinking about totally different things as you see me up here in front of you. And that is based on what was processed, what is processed in your head. Where you come from will see something different. What you were taught will actually focus on something different. And so I have to know that going in, so when I'm sitting and speaking to young people such as yourself, I have to take that into consideration. And when I come out, and now I'm focused and realizing that I'm dealing with young people that are trying to figure out what their course in life is. What is it going to be? I think about Mark Twain, and he once said that the two most important days in one's life is the day you were born and the day you realize why you were. The day you were born and the day you realize. Many of us will never find out, never discover what it is that we were meant to do. Mainly because we're blinded with this myopic vision that says this is my laws, these are my rules, and I am only supposed to achieve this level. We've been told that. And unfortunately, since we follow those roles, those guidelines, the universe doesn't benefit from it. And so I look at it as my job to get young people such as yourself to be focused. And so I go out to these schools, and what comes to mind is this one time I was at a high school in South Carolina, and I was looking at 864 students in what was called a cafetorium. 864 students, all there. They're coming down through the auditorium or cafetorium, and it is total chaos. Never seen such chaos. The principal was standing up just like this with me as I'm watching and as he's watching, and he's trying to quiet the audience. The teachers have no control at all. And they finally sit. There's still a hum. And I'm wondering, why am I doing this? What got me in this point right here? Because this is going to be bad. I can just tell. One, I'm a children's book illustrator. The first thing they didn't even know why I was there. So the question they're asking is, why is he here? We're not children, and children's books were out of that age, that stage, whatever. And so, and no one actually explained until they got here and seated and said, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, this is our guest today, and he's E.B. Lewis, children's book illustrator. And like, wow, what is he doing? I'm like, okay. He hands me the speaker and said, it's yours. Take it away. At that point becomes a reckoning. You have to decide where you're going to go with this. Are you going to put the mic down and walk out or deal with it? So I dealt with it, and I realized I had to question myself at that point, why do I do this? What gets me up in the morning and go and out and find myself in this situation? Well, word came to me very quickly, because I care. And so I posed that question to them. I said, by a show of hands, 864 of you, by a show of hands, show me how many of you care. And of that 864, your hand getting ready to go up, that's good. 864 students, only about 50 raised their hand. 50. And I'm saying, wait a minute, that can't be right. So I had to, maybe you didn't understand my question. Let me pose it to you again. And I gave him a litany of examples of what I meant by caring. Caring for self, others, life, the whole 9 yards. And when I finished, I said, all right, you understand what I'm saying? You understand what I mean by caring? They shook their head. I can see that they understood what my question was. And again, I said, by a show of hands, how many of you care? About the same 50 raised their hand. And I'm like, wow. Is that how far we have come in this society? Our educational system is 2/3. I'm looking at the teachers and I'm realizing that I wouldn't want to be in your place. Over 2/3 of your class don't care. And I'm getting ready to jump right in their world. And then I realize, this thing is just crazy. And I realize that it's not their fault. And I told them that this isn't your fault. This is my fault. My fault as educator, parent, teacher. Somewhere along the lines, we got confused and and got all caught up in our own thing and forget about you. Forgot about our young people. And that's what our society looks like right now. Perception shapes reality. And so we have been force-feeding you these ideas about mediocrity. My students at the university where I teach, they come in and they come in with the attitude, I want an A, but I only want to do C average work to get it. That's the attitude of our society. We have reached that point. We are saying that is enough. C average mediocrity is the order of the day, and we're not going to work any harder. You don't need to work any harder because we're going to give you a prize for just showing up. That's what we did. And so that's something that we can condition you to do and feel. We did that. And so now we look out and see why you guys or young, when I say guys, I mean young people, why you come in and you just don't want to do, you want to do as least amount of work as you could possibly do because you get away with it. Our fault. But the point is that, as I said earlier, you're born. And the whole point is to come up and find out what were you meant to do. Your reason for being. Reason for being. What is that? Why are you here? And if you blame the system, then that's pretty much what will happen. You blame the system. System's at fault? Yes, no doubt. The underprivileged, the poor, disenfranchised? Yes. No, we have given up on you, no doubt. And we make it seem as if we care, but we don't. But that's a given. So what are you going to do with it, with your own life? I am this individual standing in front of you, and the reason I question this, because I got here because of this, what I just said, caring. This little EB right there. And there I am with my grandparents, and there I am after something had spilled, a photograph that somebody spilled in my grandparents' photo album. I don't know what it was, but I don't want to clean it up because it reminds me of what my life was like. It was all smudged up. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be here for many reasons. I was the eldest, and I seemed not to fit. When I got to school, my books were strange to me, and they were even strange because the words were flipping around and I stuttered, and so I was a mess. I'm standing in front of my third grade class and couldn't even speak. And they laughed. So as kids, what you do, you try to figure a way to circumvent that, to challenge or to direct that negative attention somewhere else, and so I became a behavioral problem. Worked to save me. Teachers didn't figure out why I was doing it. My parents didn't. All they knew is that little Earl, we don't want him in this class. And my mother looked back at me one day as we're driving down the street with my brothers and sisters in the car. And she looked back at me and says, I hate you. Wow. What would make a parent tell their own child that they hate him? I must have been a mess. Monster. Was I am a kid. But that's what I had to struggle through. Third grade, I failed. In our system, we have decided somewhere in the 1950s that we're going to say, we will test third grade test scores. We'll take third grade test scores to determine how many beds we're going to put in a new prison. Third grade test scores determine how many beds are going to go into a new prison. That's something they started back in the 1950s, but guess what? They're still doing it today. So by all accounts, I should not be in front of you right now. Failing the third grade. By the time I reached sixth grade, I was a complete mess. Hated school, hated life, wanted to just give up. And what made it worse, we had this day, and it was called Career Day. I won't forget this ever. The stage was filled. Doctor, fireman, nurse, attorney, they were all up there from the neighborhood, excited to tell us what they did. And we were excited to have them. I'm sitting down in the front row next to the teacher. I always had to be next to the teacher. I was that kid. And the doctor started. Dr. Johnson. He presented, said, I know many of you. I brought many of you in the world. And we all knew Dr. Johnson. Then it went on from Dr. Johnson, so on and so forth, all the way down the line. And then we had an opportunity to raise our hands and said we wanted to be. Little Charlie Shoemaker on the end of the row raised his hand, said he wanted to be a doctor. Dr. Johnson responded and said, you like science? And Charlie said, I love science. And we all knew that Charlie loved science. He said, but about math? I said, math too. And we all knew that Charlie loved math. And I'm sitting there next to the teacher trying to figure out what can I say to get the same attention that Charlie just got. So I thought, and I raised my hand. The teacher sitting next to me did this. Got it up again, and she did that again. I got the other one up. They picked me. I said I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't really want to be a lawyer. I only wanted to get the same attention that Charlie got. But instead, the whole sixth grade class, teachers included, laughed. They laughed so hard I hear it right now. I didn't know what to do with that. I'm sitting there as a sixth grade, what's that, about 11 years old, sitting there, and this whole auditorium is laughing at this one kid. What do you do with that? I said that I remember looking up at the stage, and I caught the eyes of the attorney. And I wanted him to say something. He's a smart man. He's going to say something to stop him from laughing. He looked at me, looked out at the audience, and looked back at me, and moved to the next question. That can destroy a child. Self-esteem, self-value, self-worth, all those important things. I felt it. I was drowning, and I needed somebody to help. This man here saved my life. No, not him. He scared me. This man, my Superman. A man that sacrificed. Caring comes with sacrifice. It's not easy. It's something that one has to actually do. It's an action that someone has to take. And so this man decided he was going to help his nephew. He leaves the comfort of his own home, living in New Jersey. I lived in Pennsylvania. Left his 3 daughters, his wife, hopped in a car, went across the bridge, knocked on my door and said, come with me. I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was going with my Uncle Bradley. That was cool. I get in the car. We're driving down through the streets of Philadelphia, down Broad Street, and we stop on Broad Street, and there's a sign that says Ritter Hall. Get out the car. I'm like, what is this building? Open the door. Smell of linseed oil and turpentine. Boom. Whoa, what is that? I love that. A combination. That's an amazing combination. And then it was just turning my senses like a rye. And then we opened the other doors, and a set of the other doors, there are kids in there my age and older, painting and drawing and playing with clay, and Miles Davis is playing in the background, Bitches Brew, and it was amazing. I'm like, whoa, wow, this is an amazing place. These are my people, my tribe. Wow, when you find that, it changes your life. Changed my life. This man, the sacrifice, my Superman, did this for 6 years straight, every Saturday. Sacrificed his own family on a Saturday morning to take his nephew, me, to Saturday morning art class. Wow. So what this is, the reason I know and understand what happens when a kid finds himself, because that happened to me. And so not only did he introduce me to art, but he also introduced me in my passion. He introduced me to books. Remember, I told you I hated books. But he gave it to me in a way where he said, this is what you want to do. You want to be an artist, don't you? I said, more than anything you can imagine. He said, well, then all the artists I know are very well read, very intelligent, very bright. If you want to become an artist, you need to do this. And he hands me this book. The book that he's handing me is a book on Modigliani. He said, read this. I'm going to ask you questions and test you. Next month, I'm going to give you a new book. Picasso, Renoir, Cézanne, Tanner. Before you know it, I was running out of the house on my own to get these books. I became a voracious reader. Went on to Temple University, graduated with a 3.94 average, and now I teach teachers. Wow, from the ashes to where I am right now. It happens because you find the passion. And that's one of the things we don't do in our society. We don't help young people find out what they're good at. We don't do that. Find out what you're good at. I would want to know what my purpose in life was. That would be interesting to find out at least. Am I doing what I'm expected to do? Is this my path? Is this my, that term, purpose-driven life? Is this the purpose? What I'm doing right now? Am I going in that direction? I tell you, once you get on the other side, it's a whole different ballgame. I'm glad this man sacrificed his life to do that. So basically, I'm just here, not just here, because I think what I'm doing is important for me, because I know I'm an optimist. And my optimism would want, I hope that everybody's in earshot of me with their paradigm would change. Boop. I'm going to strive for excellence tomorrow, change my life, find my passion, the whole 9 yards. But I know I'm a realist. Realize that I'm, if I can touch one of you, touch one soul, I've changed. I've done something that I wanted to do when I woke up today. Change a life. Not many of you will find somebody today that will come and be as honest as I am to you. Doesn't happen in our society often. Somebody who cares. Somebody who cares. And so this is what, I know I don't have a long time and we'll take some questions, but this, if we can have the lights completely out. This is my art. This is my way of documenting life. And that's what artists do. We sit out on the peripheral and we're in constant observation of the world. And there we are looking and making commentary, holding and documenting life as it is and making others stop and think. And that's why in history, and as I said, we're outlaws because we tell dangerous truths without hurting the soul. These dangerous truths become dangerous in people who basically don't want those truths to be revealed. So whenever there was an overthrow of power, a coup d'etat, Nazi Germany, Communist China, Russia, Cuba, all the way down the line, all the way through antiquity, whenever there was an overthrow of power, the first people that they persecuted were the artists. They came after the artists first. Nazi Hitler. Not the Polish, not the Jews. They came after the intelligente. Because we tell dangerous truths. And that's what these pieces here, anything that you look at, all of it is political. Everything you see, if there's a flower, it's a political because of, as I said, perception shapes your reality. So that means that image that's in your head might look one way to me, but it's going to be saying something totally different to me based on what you're programmed to believe and to see. So these images are done in watercolor, my medium of choice. I work in this medium. I love this medium. I've worked in other mediums, but this one is the one that actually speaks to me. Someone asked me why watercolor. I said I like the way the sound it makes. It's like hitting a piece of china and hearing that distinct ping. I paint on location, and I paint from photograph. This piece was done on location, which means that I'm out there with my paints and my brushes and easel and what have you, and painting right there. And then there are times when I'm actually working from the photograph, bringing it back into the studio and working in that space, creating these images that you're seeing in front of you now. Philadelphia, city that I grew up in, city of cheesesteaks. Love cheesesteaks, and so I went down on South Street and I painted all the cheesesteak shops down there. And this is one of them on 3rd and South. A perfect way of understanding of what an artist does, because when I doing that, 1989, that corner looked like that. If you go there now, totally different. You wouldn't even recognize it. Philadelphia, one of the few cities that allow the children to actually play in the fountains. So I went down down in the Logan Circle and sat there and painted. Well, I didn't paint this on location. I've done sketches of it, but the kids play in their fountains and cool themselves off in the summer heat. I just love watching them there enjoying themselves. Ocean City, New Jersey. And then I realized my work, I needed to start making commentary, making things making my work be cogent, important, valuable. And so I started documenting a section of town in Charleston called Crosstown. In the past 10 years, over 65,000 people have been displaced because of gentrification. So I'm documenting that section of town before it no longer exists. And here are some of the children from that area. This little kid here, this painting is not just about the little boy sitting in front of that wall, but it's just as much about the wall crumbling behind him, his foundation crumbling behind him. And he's in there in that pensive position. I stopped painting for 2.5 years because I felt my work wasn't cogent, and I decided to go and just read and go through galleries and museums across the country and just study until something hits. And I came across this piece here. This is a piece by Michael Richards, Jamaican-American artist. And it's a piece about a Tuskegee Airman. And it's about injustice, where he has actually taken a body cast of himself and then had these gold planes crashing into his body to make the commentary, making the statement of this injustice, of the African-American soldier there, and how he was accepted by the country once he came back, being these planes crashing in his own body. It blew me away. I'm like, wow, this is what I want my work to do. I want my work to talk about these injustices. And so I go over to read the plaque. And the plaque reads, oh yeah, this is about Michael Richards, a Jamaican-American artist, injustice, alluding to Saint Sebastian being shot with the arrows. And I'm just blown. I'm still reading and reading. And then at the bottom, it says he must have had a premonition of his own death, because Michael Richards, the artist, perished in the 9/11 plane crash. When the planes crashed into the World Trade Center, his studio was at the top of the World Trade Center, and that's how he lost his life. Wow. Man, that just blew me away. And you think about that. I mean, it's just caused a moment of pause. And so I went back to my studio. 2 months passed, and this idea hit. This is how I'm going to talk about injustice of our children. And I looked at how we look at this idea of getting rich and changing our existence, and it's always about money and not about the human. Just being human, you know. The immensity of just being human is enough. But we have to add to that, and before we compound and it gets confused and complicated, and before you know it, we're in situations where we are today. So I decided that I'm going to take this little child, cover it with something valuable, and then paint the child on something even more valuable that we feel. And these are these lotto icons. So what I'm doing is I'm actually painting these children on lottery tickets, only to scratch through. So it's like being on an archaeological dig. You find something very precious underneath the earth. You brush away the detritus, the dirt, and uncover this thing that is far more valuable, as I think, than the thing that was covering it, the gold in this case. And underneath the lottery ticket, I collect these lottery tickets. I'm buying them from all over the world, from Portugal, from Israel, from Morocco, Philippines. I just came back from the Philippines. They have them all over, the scratch off lottery tickets. I will never scratch one of them. I put the kid on top of it because it's like these kids, or if I scratch them, it will just take the piss right out of it for me. So not knowing whether or not they're winning or losing tickets, it's just like our children. We don't know if they're winners or losers until we scratch them. This is a larger one. This is based on the song by Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday. And then they're framed like 12th century Byzantine icons. Some of them are large. And this is how I got into children's books. This is my very first book, Fire in the Mountain. And I start with thumbnail sketches and then turn those sketches into larger images to get a sense of what the work is going to look like after I paste down and the words from the publisher. So now I need the manuscript. I have the manuscript, the little boy there playing a flute, the mountains in the background. This is about a little boy in Ethiopia, and he's basically watching his family's sheep and playing a flute in the mountains of Gondor in Ethiopia. So I go to the library. I spent hours there looking at researching reference material for Africa, Ethiopia in particular. And so I'm looking at the trees, the mountains, and all those things that I need for the paintings in the book that I'm going to actually use. And then I find my models. My models here, and I dress this little kid up, put him in front of a stone and behind the art museum, and then when I finish, the painting looked like this. Another example, the waterfall that you see there, kid playing the flute. I needed a waterfall, and my kid is just jumping. I'm not doing it. And here's the kid, waterfall, kid, and then the result. Ethiopia, again, I needed to get the research direct, so I actually went to Ethiopia. I spent 5 weeks in Addis Ababa, Demidola, and Gambela, and researched. And what I found were these amazing kids there. Poor is all get out. Poverty has nothing to do with striving for excellence and wanting a different life. There's a wonderful sign that's coined by Nelson Mandela as you ride down the streets of Addis, and it says, knowledge is power. They get it. And if you just look at their faces, not one of them is turned away. They were like that for the whole 5 weeks that I was there, like sponges, trying to get the information to change their life, change their condition. Down the road, these are some of the books that I've done. Bad Boy and His Violin. The seal that you see there is the Coretta Scott King Award seal. And there are two other major awards that are given for children's books. One is the Caldecott, the Newbery for the writer, Caldecott for the illustrator, and then the Coretta Scott King for both writer and illustrator. So I get this award 1 year, and then the following next year, they call me up and say, Mr. Lewis, guess what? You won it again. And then, believe it or not, the next year, they call me up and say, Mr. Lewis, you won it again. So I'm the only illustrator in the country who's ever won that award 3 years in a row. And I've won it 7 times in total, so I've been totally blessed. Bibbidi about Barbershop, talking about Bessie, the female aviator, Bessie Coleman. I love my hair. This one was interesting because I had to actually since I work with live models, I needed to see this little girl fly because one of the scenes, this little girl's flying with pigtail wings. So this is how I got her to fly. I chained her up. Literally, dog leashes, chains, belts, and she was having a ball. She didn't want to come down. She actually thought she was flying. Her sister's on the top step. Could I do it next? And her mother's in the background in horror. And then the kids love this part where I tell illustrations like being a magician. And through the magic words, I turn her hair into cornrows. Every one of my books, I do this. I do a hugging scene. I think embrace is important for children. And so I put those scenes in my books. And then books like this come out, The Other Side, which are very powerful books. Books that get you to think, get you to question your own perspective. Again, back to perspective, perception, reality. What's here has been, what's there will determine what and how we see the world. And if those things that have been placed in that box, in that program, focus you and you see that this world that I'm looking at appears as being black and white, that's what it will be because that's how it's been programmed into your brain. And so this is a book that questions that. And it's about 2 little girls living on opposite sides of a fence. And the story goes, once that's some of the fence that stretched through our town seemed bigger. We lived in a big yellow house on one side of it. White people lived on the other. And Mama said, don't climb over the fence when you play. She said it wasn't safe. That summer there was a girl who wore a pink sweater. Each morning she climbed up on the fence and she sat there staring over at our side. Sometimes I stared back. She never sat on that fence with anybody, that girl didn't. Once when we were playing double dutch, she asked if she could play, and my friend Sandra said no, without even asking the rest of us. I don't know what I would have said. Maybe yes, maybe no. That summer, everyone and everything on the other side of the fence seemed far away. And when I asked my mama why, she said because that's the thing, the way things had always been. Sometimes me and mom went into town, I saw that girl with her mama. She looked sad sometimes, that girl did. Don't stare, my mama said. It's not polite. Well, it rained a lot that summer. On rainy days, that girl sat on the fence in a raincoat. She let herself get all wet after she didn't even care. Sometimes I saw her dance around in puddles, splashing and laughing. My mama wouldn't let me go in the rain. That's why I bought you rainy day toys, my mama said. You stay inside here where it's warm, safe, and dry. But every time it rained, I always looked for that girl, and I always found her somewhere near the fence. Someplace in the middle, some of the rain stopped, and when I walked outside, the grass was damp, and the sun was already high up in the sky. I stood there with my hands up in the air. I felt brave that day. I felt free. I got close to that fence, and that girl asked me my name. Clover, I said. Mine's Annie, she said. Annie Paul. I live up yonder where you see the laundry. That's my blouse hanging on the line. She smiled then, and I smiled, and we stood there staring at each other, smiling. It's nice up on this fence, Annie said. You can see all over. I ran my hands along the fence, and I reached up to touch the top of it. A fence like this was made for sitting on, Annie said. She looked at me sideways. Well, my mama said I shouldn't go on the other side. My mama said the same thing, but she never said anything about sitting on it. Neither did my own mama, I smiled. That summer, me and Annie sat up on that fence, and when Sandra looked at me funny, I just made believe I didn't care. Some mornings, my mama watched us. I waited for her to tell me to get down from that fence before you break your neck or something, but she never did. I see you made a new friend, she said one morning, and I nodded, and mama smiled. That summer, me and Annie sat up on that fence and watched the whole wide world around us. One day, Sandra was playing double dutch near the fence, and we asked if we could play. I don't care, Sandra said. And when we jumped, Sandra and me were partners the way we used to be. And we were too tired to jump anymore. We sat up on that fence, all of us, in one long line. Someday somebody's gonna come along and knock this old fence down, Annie said. Yeah, I nodded. Someday. Jackie Woodson is the author. Sometimes the mommy gets angry. Dirt on their skirts about the female baseball league from the 1940s. Here's images from that. Circle and Broken. Coming on Home Soon, the Caldecott book. When You Were Born, this little light of mine. I've done 70 books, so I'm not going to show you all 70. These are just a cross-section of them across the alley. Night Boat to Freedom, Lily Brown's paintings, and Legend of the Cape May Diamond, D is for Drinking Gourd. I will never do another alphabet book as long as I live. Keeping the Night Watch, The Negro Speaks of Rivers Langston Hughes. Here's some of the paintings from that. I Want to Be Free, Homegrown House, Stars Above Us, about a little girl who's afraid of the dark, and her dad's out there telling her he's getting ready to go into the service and telling her no need to be afraid of the night sky. Wonderful things happen in the night sky. The Secret World of Walter Anderson, Each Kindness, another book by Jackie Woodson, one of the top books, the top book in the country on the subject of tolerance and bullying. Trooper, this is a Show Me State book this year. All the kids of the state voted this book as their #1 book. All Different Now, Seeds of Freedom, First Step, book about Brown versus the Board of Education. There's some of the paintings from that. And I'm going to stop on this one, Night Running, about a dog and his faithful master, the little boy. True story about a little boy running from the plantation and his dog Zeus. And I have to dress the characters up, and here's some of the people from the town that are going to help. This takes place in Kentucky. And the little guy there, here's the principal of the school, the thumbnail sketches, the dummy book image, the photograph, and the painting. In the book, True Story, one of the slave narratives, he tells his dog Zeus that he's going to leave, and he cannot come because he's a dog, and he sees a squirrel at night and makes his whereabouts known if he barks. So after telling his dog that and running, of course the dog leads the charge. I climb into a tree to get the shot, fall out of the tree on the way down, get the shot, it's blurry, I'm not going in the tree again, and I use it. It's blurry shot, I run and it works. Then he gets captured because he made the mistake of telling his best friend that he's going to escape. His best friend tells on him, he gets caught, and his dog Zeus goes and frees him that night. That they make their way down to the Ohio River. Through the magic of illustration, I turn that Ohio River into, I should say this little lake here, little stream, into the Ohio River. And he tells his dog again, you stay back. My freedom lies across this river, the Ohio River. And he leaves his dog back on the shore, jumps into this boat, gets out in the middle of the Ohio River, and the boat springs a leak. So I need this dog to jump into the water. Well, I got him in. And he comes to the rescue, pulls him to the Ohio side of the river, where he's rescued by the farmer, played by the principal of the school. This dog that I hired would not go to sleep because I needed him to go to sleep and just refused to go to sleep. And so through the magic of illustration, I made him go to sleep. My studio, where all the work is done. I spent hours in this space creating the art that you just saw. The other part of my studio looks like this. I love the game of pool, pretty good pool player. And my sons, Aaron and Josh, and my baby boy, Noah. And that's the end. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions? Right there. How long does it take to do a book?
Or a piece of art that you do, sir?
Just one of the paintings. It depends. Generally about 2 to 3 days. But I'm working 15 hours a day. So I'm literally in the studio from 11 to about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Working, stopping for a break, lunch or whatever, and then working right through. So I spend a lot of time in the studio.
And how
which
do you
is
get,
my favorite place in all the world.
and how do you get your stuff published, sir?
The publishers actually come to me. They send me the manuscript. And it's because I showed the ability to create art, the ability to create images. And so I say, there's an example of a woman who lives in, Scotland. She's one of the greatest weavers of all Scotland. She's knighted by the Queen. And she's in this little small town, and you could tell that she has barely has electric. I guess she has electric, I'm not even sure. But no, of course, computer, no business cards, none of that. And National Geographic came all the way across the country, all the way across from one country to the other to find her to do an interview. So they found her. So my thing is that you just do the work and they find you. Yes.
What was your degree in at Temple?
I majored in art education and graphic design and illustration. So I have a BFA, and then I have an MFA, and I have a master's degree in special education. So I've been teaching for 35 years, second grade, high school, working with the emotionally disturbed adolescent and the criminally insane. So I worked in the prison system. Yes. Fire on the Mountain. That was the first one. That started it all. Long time ago, 23 years. I will be turning 60 in December the 16th. I don't know how many, what's today? Today's the 7th? Okay, so yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yes.
You ever collaborated with the author, or is it always their manuscript sent to you?
One time. Only once. That's rare.
Didn't work?
It did. It's just that the way it works and with the Illustrator that they actually, come up with the manuscript. And if you look at my work, it's a common thread of the work is that I do emotion. I do tough stories. And so if a story like that comes across an editor's desk, 9 times out of 10, they're going to get E.B. Lewis to do it. So if that's what you see in those stories. Like the book that I'm working on now, it's called Is Your Daddy a Soldier Like Mine? It's about a little boy, interesting I'm here, about a little boy whose father's going into the service, into the war. spending time having to come back and go back. And so that's the title of the book, is Your Daddy a Soldier Like Mine. Tough story, but that's the kind of stories that I do. Yes. I did Illustrator, which was an honor, major honor. They contacted me. There was her most famous book, Why the Caged Bird Sings, and they said they were going to do a limited edition, only 800 books. She signed 800 and sent the books to me, and I signed. I got on the phone with her, and she told me what she thought of the work, which was great to be able to talk to her personally. So that was just quite an honor. I had Desmond Tutu call me personally and said I was his favorite illustrator in all the world. And getting a call like that is amazing. And he wanted me to illustrate his Bible. I had to turn him down. I mean, who turns down Desmond Tutu? I had to turn him down. I couldn't at the time. But I did a book. I did a painting for his book because he decided that he was going to find another way around. And he asked me, could I do one painting? And I said yes. And I did The Last Supper. And when he saw it, he wept. Yes. What other countries have I gone? Wow. I just got back from the Philippines. I was in the Philippines for a month. This year, I've been to Morocco. I've been to Germany. I was in Frankfurt. I was in Luxembourg, Belgium, France. And when I leave here on Monday morning, I get on a plane to Spain. That's just in 2 months. So I've been to Africa. The only places I've not gone is like, I haven't been to Hawaii. I haven't been to Alaska. I've been to all the other continents. So I've been fortunate. And as an artist, I get to see both sides of humanity. I see the poorest of the poor, and they bring me in, and I'm having dinner on dirt floors. And the very next day, I'm dining with the ambassador. And it's the ability to be comfortable in both situations, because my perception has changed, and that perception, changing that perception, frees you. It doesn't handicap you, and your myopic vision is changed, is broadened. So I accept all, I'm open to all things. Not accepting of all things, but open to all things. Changes the world. Somebody else had a hand up over here. This is the time to ask. Yes. A favorite what? It was, I love Turkey. I spent time in Istanbul. But until I went to Morocco, I like Morocco. I spent some time in Morocco. I love Morocco.
Any other stories or poems? Man, that's the one I'd love to illustrate.
It's interesting. I just got finished talking to a gentleman. He just got off the phone with Jane Elliott. And she's the one who dealt with, back in the 60s after King was shot, she did that experiment of having her class feel what it was like to experience racism and difference. And she figured out how can I get my whole white class to know what it feels like to be different. And she had them go by the eye color. If you had brown eyes, you were in this section, and you were going to be those who are the elite. And if you have blue eyes, you're going to be in this section, and you're going to be of the lower class. And the experiment was this. I mean, she's 80-some years old, and he's working on that book. And we just got finished talking about it tonight. And this is the first time I brought up the focus of vision or perspective. Basically, your perception shapes your reality. And it just came right, boom. So I want to do that book. Yes. That's not something, that's a fingerprint. It is not something that you set on. Your style is set just merely because of the fact that you work. I have no idea what my style looks like. All I know is that I go into the studio and I produce this work. And I'm not focused on style at all. And I think as soon as you focus on that, you're dead. You know, it's like, I give it the phrase of chubby checker syndrome. You know, chubby checker did the twist. He's probably like 90 years old, he's still doing the twist. I'm sure he's got other things in him, but he never allowed himself more than the twist because he recognized that that was what it was selling, that was popular, and that's what put the food on the table. But it stifles you as an artist. And so I never want that to happen, so I have no idea what my style is. I just go in and paint. You see that. I don't see that. Gentlemen, it was great. It was real. Hopefully you got you to think about your lives, the direction, what you're going to do. And that's my intention. Thank you for having me.
Thank you all for spending the evening with us. To the Corps of Cadets, thank you all, the community, Dr. Shivers, and the rest of Mexico who made EB's visit here possible. And have a good evening.